So let's see. Sorry.
No touching. Not a hugger.
First of all, no touching you. I can. No.
Yeah, true.
Hi, and welcome to the Inner Moxie Podcast. A podcast about not one, but two neurodivergent adults trying to live their best lives on the neuro-D list and not hate themselves in the process. I'm your host, Ronnie.
And I'm Zanny.
And this week, we will be talking about horror movies.
Horror.
You have to
What?
hit it hard, or
Whip. That is from Family Guy.
you have to hit it hard, or otherwise people say horror movies.
Oh, I guess. All right. Moxie meter time. How is yours?
Moxie meter time. I'll be honest. I'm going for. I'll call it a 3. I know a lot of rates for straight down the middle. Honestly, last couple of days, I just having a really, really hard time. But like today, I kind of hit that groove. That is the groove that hopefully I will be in for the next couple of months. There's a lot of stressors going down with the house hunt, but I'm keeping above it, and I'm keeping myself busy with other stuff. So all in all, it's about a 3. I have to say, I recently went on vacation with my family, which was nice. But I think I told you this during our little meeting. It's like, neurotypicals are exhausting. If there's any neurotypicals listening, we love you dearly. It is. And I have my personal thoughts on which form of communication is better and more effective, but there's a total difference in communication, and kind of being the odd one out on that amongst the grown-ups. Just as felt like 3 days of trying to guess what everybody wants without even knowing I was supposed to guess. And so, but like a good time was had by all. If you are part of a family that happens to go on family vacations and doesn't have any little fights, I'm unsarcastically very happy for you. I have never known that to be the case for most people that I know. Anytime you get family together, especially generationally, there's some kind of stressors if it's a multi-day thing. But I think overall we had a really good time, and the stressors were definitely worth it.
Nice.
So that's where I'm flying at right now. How about you?
All right. So today is kind of a 7.5, just sleep quality stuff. So I'm just a little more tired, and some irritating things have happened. Including right as I was leaving, finding out that my AC unit might be leaking into the person's roof below me. And I don't even know what to do. That is way outside of my scope. But
Paper towels.
I'll figure it out. I looked in the cabinet where the thing is, and it's not wet. So some kind of special AC person needs to look at this.
Isn't that always the worst when you're like, I think I have an idea. I know nothing about this, but logically this should be the case. And then you do it, it's like, well, that didn't do anything. I just got to pay somebody.
Yeah. And honestly, I'm just kind of dreading turning off the AC, because I think that's the responsible thing to do, because I'm assuming it's condensation. There's no Freon, I don't think, happening, because that happens on the roof. All the AC units where you put the Freon is on the roof. I do know that. So I'm not as thrown as I could have been, because I could have catastrophized, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, you're still a 7.58.
Yeah.
That's a pretty high number.
It is. My check-ins with myself have been between 8 and 8.5 for the last week. And things are engaging. Work is super engaging and exciting now.
Nice.
And I think that's going to be kind of the baseline basically now, which is really cool. And life stuff is all happening. All of a sudden days are done, and I'm excited to go to sleep and wake up the next day, even if the next day is a Monday. It's not, I was never oh man, I gotta work. But sometimes, having to go and do the things, if it's boring or you're just doing the same stuff over and over again, I can't live like that for long. I would just rather make no money, to be honest, even though that sounds weird. I would figure something else out. I just hate to waste my own time is what it is.
As someone who now and at various points in his life has made very little to no money, there's some benefits to it.
Right.
There's the obvious downfalls to it, but there's some benefits.
Right. But I mean, the downfall for me would be, God, I got to find someone that would do that for me, and I'm not willing to do it. Mm-hmm. That would also feel very dishonest for me, which is not your situation at all. Mm-hmm. But that, anyway. Yeah. So in general, like things have been going well, and I'm really excited for whatever is coming, because I don't know exactly what things are, but I don't know. Like I just feel very engaged with life. So it feels nice.
That's a good spot to be in.
It is. So much so that I emailed my therapist and I was like, you know what? We were going to start EMDR. She is on like a 2-week thing. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you know what? Like, I've been doing a lot of like my own work on some stuff, and some things have like actually resolved, which I didn't expect. And I just feel like I'm in a good place. I was like, I kind of want to bank my sessions like for the end of winter, right? The beginning of next year, like starting probably mid-February, right? Because I don't get unlimited and I want to save it because like that's my tough time. And like I reached out, what I now know is probably a little bit later in that cycle. So I just want to get ahead of it for next time, because that auth is good for like a year. So So, and she said a nice thing, which I was like, it feels like I'm going to let someone down, even though that's their job and they want someone to feel this way. Right. Like that's the point. And she just wrote, I'm so happy for you. That's so great. Like, okay. Of course that's what a therapist is going to say. That's what I would say. But also it does feel weird to say, I don't know, not that it's my responsibility, but I'm just like, well, that's income, that's this, that's that, which is not supposed to be on my mind, but oh well, what I know about the business too much.
Well, and to your point, it is a weird position to be in, of like, you're doing so great, I don't need to pay you anymore. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I guess that's just the nature of some professions.
Yeah, exactly. I did not ghost, which, if I hated it, I probably would have just done that. As a client, it's not a big deal. You're taught in therapy school how to deal with that and just trust that whatever you did talk about kind of like resonated or whatever. Right. But I felt like, I kind of want to save this versus burn this bridge, which is good. That feels like a growth.
Well, especially I know, like, I've said it before on here of therapists aren't like a one size fits all. Mm-hmm. And you got to find one that matches with you. There are, I'm sure, plenty of really great therapists out there that just I wouldn't match very well with. And so when you find one that's there, to the point of not burning the bridge, it is nice to have that in your back pocket of it's very rare that life just continues on being the same amount of okay all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that feels good. I've also been listening to this book, which I really like, and I just wanted to highlight it because I feel like, okay, this thought came to me. So the book is called Hijab Butch Blues, and it is a memoir by Lamia H.
His title sounds incredibly interesting.
It got some fodder or something last year. I just looked up, like, this was not a recent list that I made, but it was last year, and it had hit the scene, and it came recommended. It's really good, really fascinating, and I actually identify with them a lot. I don't know she's referring to herself as she now, but gender is kind of like a theme, and I'm not done, so I don't know if that will change. But I was not raised Muslim, but I was raised Christian and reading the Bible, and it's a very interesting perspective, and I just wanted to put that out there. People should listen to it. And the thing that made me think of this is I made a reservation or whatever on Libby, which is the library app. Okay. For this a while back with some other stuff, and I was just like, why is this one the first one? That just bothered me. Like the first one that became available.
You mean of all the reservations that you made?
I could be reading into it, but I'm also just like, this is really good, really well written, and a very, I don't know if it's a unique experience, but it's definitely something not spoken of often, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're talking about things of
being queer and Muslim just seems...
Queerness and religion in general. Not all religions are the same. There are varying degrees, but in the broadest of brushstrokes, religion has not been great coming to terms with the fact that queerness even exists.
Exactly. And like that is a major theme in this memoir. And it's just really well written. I have not once, which is rare for me. And who am I? I'm nobody. I'm not an editor. That's for sure.
But you are a religion and a disease.
That is true.
That's two things.
True. But like, I have no one of any, I don't have any special knowledge, but I have not critiqued in my head any of like the actual writing, which is something that my brain does a lot. Especially if I know it's a memoir or someone wrote, a movie and wrote the script or whatever, like the person, not necessarily a person whose job it is or a group of people. Fucking dogs, man.
I know. We can reference those dogs because I might not be able to get them out.
Get them out, yeah. Just make your peace, kids. That was a kid screaming. You should leave all that in, actually, because I heard myself go on a little bit of a tirade like this, but you edited out all the noise, so I just sound like
I do send it through. So even when that noise is there, I am cleaning up the audio. Okay. So which isn't I mean, occasionally like bumps and stuff I'll manually take out, but a lot of that is a noise reducer that I use.
Okay.
And so a lot of times it's just getting covered up by like I'd have to go back in and pull it out. Which I'd rather just whisper into a microphone, Sandy's not crazy.
It was when I was having an almost meltdown over the kids just not shutting up because they were having a great time and it was summer and I know I'm wrong. Okay. Yeah. It is just those are the things that my brain just wants to explode over. That's all. Yeah. And so it was happening and there's a fucking dog again. And there's a fucking dog like that where I live and anyway,
I know this is a very, very old reference for very, very old people, but I think in some aspects it's always going to be kind of like the Goonies octopus scene. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I remember the Goonies a lot. I like it. Octopus. Okay. Say more.
Okay, so I believe I'm getting this order correct. When Goonies released in theaters, there's a scene where they fight an octopus in it. Around, like there was an octopus around the ship, the sunken ship. It was kind of a cheesy looking octopus, not the greatest of things. So for the home release, they cut it out. But at the end of the movie, Data, is that his name? Mm-hmm. Data still, when he's talking to the reporter and they're listing off all the things he did, he's like, oh, and then there was an octopus. Oh. But there wasn't one in the VHS. I don't know if it came back in the DVD, Blu-ray, or 4K.
I've never seen an octopus. I have never seen the original release.
So I don't know, also, I don't love the Goonies like everybody else loves the Goonies. I don't hate the Goonies. I don't dislike the Goonies. But I don't put it up on that pedestal like everybody else does.
I mean, I didn't watch it as a child, but I really like it. Because when I was a kid, I definitely would have gone on adventures like that. Like I was very adventurous and made forts and stuff in my backyard and did all that stuff.
Hung out with murderers, escaped from prison.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. I forgot where we were, but I was talking about Hijab Butch Blues.
Yes.
Oh, it's a really great memoir. I haven't critiqued any of the writing in my head, which is rare for me, I'm not a person that is licensed or whatever. Like I don't have any credentials behind me to be able to do it. But like my brain points stuff out sometimes. Why I can't watch the show Lost. I just hate the writing so much. If you're listening to this and you wrote it, sorry, write better.
That is not the expressed viewpoint of the show. That is solely her. Lost is one of my favorite shows of all time. I am one of the few that actually love the ending of Lost.
My dad does too.
Yeah, good. Me and your dad will hang out.
You should.
He has ADHD.
He does. Yeah, no, but the dialogue just ruined the whole thing. I don't know. But that's just me. This is why I struggle with like scripted stuff a lot, you know, unless it's very specific. And I do not want to hear that reality TV is scripted. I don't care. I suspend reality completely for all that shit.
Right.
So there's that caveat. But yeah, it's super well written. Very like, I don't know. For me, I resonate a lot with some of the things that she's saying, you know, and having a hard time with some of the stuff and really wanting the religion to say something, you know, or like the verses and things. Like there's a lot of that stuff in there as it relates to like the story she's telling. And yeah, I think it's really great.
Yeah. I'll definitely look into it. I've been bad about reading lately. I think
the person that reads it to me on Libby has a good voice.
Yeah, I got an audio. The last audiobook I got was Clive Barker, Weave World, which is kind of Clive Barker, Hellraiser. He only directed like 3 movies. He's mostly an author, but I fucking love his work. And I got Weave World, which is like a big opus he made. Also like more of a fantasy than a horror.
Mr. Holland's opus.
But yeah, I haven't been able to click into that, so I gotta get back on the audiobooks. It's hard when I don't drive anywhere as much.
I hear you. Things like that, at least for me, come not seasonally as in they line up with summer, fall, whatever, but like
seasons
sometimes I'm on one with it, and then other times I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot I do that. All right. Well, I'm wrapping that up.
All right. Well, thank you for letting me know. I was going to say a quick couple of things I noticed while editing last week's episode. You said the word habits, and then I, without explaining it, just went habits, which is a thing I do from time to time. And I realize that makes me look like a psychopath, so I was just going to explain it really quick. There's a film I worked on that my company made. One of the films I'm most proudest of. It's a film called Hello and Goodbye. And in it, we got 2 amazing actors, Tybee Diskin and Peter Weidman. And just... they're fucking fabulous. I edited the film and I did sound on the film. So I watched it a bunch in that process. And there's just later on in the movie, there's a point where Tybee's character says the words habits, but reads it like that. It's just my habits. And so now anytime somebody says habit, and I was just like listening back to it, and I was like, I didn't even know I said habits like that until I
didn't pick it up.
So just to point out, I mean that's not on the list of things that makes me crazy. But yeah, that's right. And also, if you're listening, go watch Hello and Goodbye. Hello and Goodbye is fantastic, and I think it's on Tubi right now.
I do also want to say I wouldn't have picked up on that in that way where I'm like, oh, what's wrong with him? Because like that type of echolalia kind of thing, which that could have been mistaken for, is actually very common amongst ASD folk. Yeah. At least, and if not more.
And that crossed my mind. That wasn't completely... I'm not like sitting here right now like, oh, really? You don't say.
But like it happens so often. I do the same thing too. I repeat the last word a lot. In my head for sure, but like also sometimes out loud. I really subconsciously, I believe, rein it in when there's other people if I'm, but because like that kind of masking is like almost has become hardwired. I don't know if that's a thing, but like, yeah, I definitely do that a lot.
Well, and sometimes you can't, fucking die on every hill. Sometimes you just say the weird word in your head.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say, I made a quick reference to a quote about the way to write a good song is to write 300 bad songs. And I said that I didn't know for sure, but maybe Adam Duritz from Counting Crows. It was fucking Bob Dylan, who I adore much more than Counting Crows.
I don't know how you know anything Counting Crows ever said, unless it was a lyric in a song.
I mean, I watch interviews, and also I listen to people talk about.
I don't listen to people talk, okay? Ever.
But no, like I've had some friends that love the Counting Crows. Real. I'm not going to make fun of my friends or the Counting Crows. The Counting Crows are fine. They're just not for me. But yes, I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that's attributed to Bob Dylan. And honestly, I couldn't even find the direct quote. So maybe it's just apocryphal. But that was Bob Dylan, not Counting Crows.
Okay. Apocryphal is an interesting word to use for that. So by that, you mean something that was said and then taken out and you can't really... What do you mean by I know what the Apocrypha is.
My understanding of the definition of apocryphal, and maybe I'm using this wrong, is that it's something that's commonly said but didn't really happen, but it's just kind of a common understanding.
Oh, that makes sense for that. The Apocrypha were ripped out of the Bible, and whoever the people decided what should be there and should not be there. They said, these things aren't real.
Yes.
These things didn't happen, or these, whatever they said.
Yeah. Well, my understanding of the Apocrypha is that it was just kind of the books of the Bible that when people were trying to kind of give it a more univocal, written by one person, they're like, well, this stuff really does contradict the other stuff. This is like Jesus shooting lasers out of his eyes and stuff. That's not really in there.
The dog disagrees.
Jesus did shoot lasers out of his eyes, and I won't hear
that. Is Jesus.
He's back in dog form.
Oh my God, I cannot fucking deal.
I know. It is.
Get a life, dog.
I was gonna say I do feel you because I used to record other people's voiceover because of audio engineer, and also I do ADR. And do you know ADR? ADR is when
oh, shoot me! This is how I feel. I feel like someone is stabbing my brain.
Someone might be.
Maybe.
But yeah, ADR is when something doesn't get recorded well on set, you go in afterwards and try and match it in a studio booth. And so like if you couldn't make
they
out,
do. I noticed that on MasterChef that I've been watching lately.
It's also called looping is the other term, which automatic dialogue replacement is what ADR is short for, which I fucking hate because it's the least automated thing that has ever happened in film sound. I hate it. But that's just
Sounds like it. All right. Well, today we are going to be talking about the horror genre.
Yay.
And the potential, why we like it, why we hypothesize that maybe neuro-D people might like it more than others.
Yeah. I think the kind of just a peek behind the podcast curtain, as it were, what we were talking about, or what brought it up, was I had just watched a movie I'd never seen before called Tokyo Fist, and there's some very, very violent stuff in it, which is the kind of stuff that I'm into. And I began to wonder. I was like, how much of this is related to the neurodiversity, specifically ADHD on this one, because what do you call it? That is like novelty seeking is part of ADHD.
Yes, I did come across that.
I was going to say, I'm trying to think. I might not be getting the word right.
No, novel experiences was a word and / phrase that I saw.
Right. Novelty and thrill seeking. There we go. I'm going to pull over my notes. And so, I mean, spoiler alert for down the road. I don't think I found anything that was a direct connection with it.
Yeah.
But so this is all conjecture, but conjecture that seems to make sense. And that nothing disputes yet that I found either. So,
yeah. I mean, oddly enough, okay, I went to my undergrad, my bachelor's was at a Christian university in Orange County, and I took a horror films class there.
Ooh.
Which I was like, they have this here? Cool. And like the teacher, I mean, it wasn't like a tenured person, it was an adjunct, but he was like, these are very moral films in whatever, in the sense that he meant moral, like, The Virgin Lives, whatever, like that kind of prototype. So that was kind of cool. I mean, I personally have always been kind of, I like the dark whatever. I mean, I found a bunch of research sort of, but nothing specifically tying, but like there are certain traits associated with an increased likelihood of enjoying horror films, which are also common traits in ADHD, some ASD stuff. I mean, ASD is so much more broad as far as how it presents,
Right.
like the zero empathy people with Simon Baron Cohen and then the ones that are so empathic that it's really difficult to like talk to people sometimes or like deal with other people's stuff. So like that all kind of factors in, but I also found that they're experimenting using horror films in with anxiety and therapy.
That was actually something I found when I was looking up. So that point goes to me. No, I'm kidding.
We're keeping points.
Or around that area that one of the things they're saying was that horror can help in stimulus seeking, which is very ADHD. Always seeking stimulus. This is probably more accurate to the original point I was making than novelty. But stimulus seeking and emotional regulation. It is literally a safe space to go and experience a wide variety of, the whole roller coaster thing.
I did.
Of feeling in danger on something safe.
Oops, I just head bonked that. I found that that's called the hold on, what do they call it? I think it's a safety frame or protective frame. Like that's what's required in order to get enjoyment out of a horror film. We can just start with that because I had just opened up to it. It was going to be my point number 3, but here we are.
But I so rarely do research.
Very true. I wanted you to do it first because
I wanted to get my research.
I only have 11 pages worth.
Yeah, and
yeah, great job.
Thank you
with the finding things. So
I spent entire minutes on it.
Wow, good for you. Okay, so I guess this continuum, the protective frame, in order to get enjoyment or pleasure from watching horror films, this article says you need to feel like you're physically safe.
Yeah.
Like, so a safety frame. So you can derive pleasure from a horror film as long as you believe that whatever the thing is that's happening is not actually going to jump out and get you also. This is why these are not good for children who may not have been able to figure out what is reality and what stays in TV or video games or,
I will say when I was harder into my insomnia, and I couldn't sleep very well, and I also have high amounts of anxiety, so I would end up in a quiet house or quiet apartment, depending on what age I was, and I would get very kind of like paranoid about every little sound, but at that time I know it was much harder for me to watch stuff around serial killers. per se, because like just talking about the like safety you have to be, you know, I could rationalize that ghosts weren't real. That sounded. I was trying to not throw you in the pool, but then for some reason,
I'm in the pool.
Yeah.
It's fine.
You know, ghost monsters, zombies, all stuff I love. I'm not too worried about, but serial killers exist. And I know like specifically like Richard Ramirez, because his crimes were just like a dude.
Indiscriminate.
So indiscriminate. Yeah. like Bundy and other guys like that. I mean, they did horrible things, but they had a plan.
You were not
to
the
it.
target.
Yeah, I was not the target. I would like to think Dahmer would have had a little crush on me when I was younger.
I didn't even think about Dahmer. I was just thinking about, you know, like you said Bundy first, so that's what I thought about.
But yeah, and into that, but like there was, I don't know, it was sick, but there was a rationale behind it.
A pattern you could do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that Ramirez was just like, no, I'm going to walk into your house and shoot you. Probably not
or have
steal
sex
stuff
with you.
Yeah, or both, depending on which order I feel like it that day.
With my teeth I haven't brushed in years and my horrible halitosis and
and so just because he was that wild card, it was specific on it, but it was that's kind of, that was like the thing that would come through, not like come through to TV to me, but like that I would be more mindful not to watch serial killer stuff later on at night, because I could probably do it now, no issue. I say I could definitely do it now, but when I had insomnia, just the combination of that in a quiet house was not helping at all. And then, you know, I'd walk through the house, and then I'm a not sporty guy, so I don't have baseball bats or anything laying around. But I had the known location of every fire extinguisher. That was because also ADHDers are planners.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there planning about how to protect my children should someone break into my house.
Good. That's a good general plan to have.
Not really.
No?
It's more paranoid than anything else. Nobody's going to break into my house.
I guess.
I dare you. It's at one. No.
Ooh. Yeah, don't drop that. Yeah, I don't.
This is going to be the clip that they play after I get murdered in my house.
See?
Nobody's ever going to just Ronnie or somebody.
Well, if you're a murderer and you're listening,
thank you for the listen, first of all, but get help.
I hope you're doing Dexter's work. Otherwise, I don't condone. Anyway. Okay, so then the second thing in the protective frame involves detachment. So being able to psychologically detach from the horror experience instead of getting triggered, basically.
Yeah. Well, and two, by the way, if people need to do that, people should do that. But there are some people that frame that detachment of like as bravery, or as like, oh, that's not even scary. That's not. God, I hate watching a horror movie with somebody that's like, oh, it's not even scary all the way through. It's like, we get it. You've invested nothing into this movie, and that's fine. I'm trying to, so please be quiet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the detachment that they're talking about is like an internal activation where you're reminding yourself on some level, even if it's not like conscious, like these are actors. It's like, you know that though, you know, these people didn't actually die in this film.
Yeah.
Like I know that I'm not necessarily thinking about that, but like, cause I can get invested in whatever it is, but you know, at the end of the day, Forrest Whitaker is alive or whatever, you know. I was thinking about Gothic.
Last we checked.
I'm not up to date on anyone that's died. But you know, having that in the back of your mind, and you don't even have to engage that, but like your brain knows it, so it's like easier to get invested. But you need to be able to detach a little bit. I often get told that I seem detached when it comes to stuff like that. It's fine. I don't feel like I've worked it out enough to where I'm like, I'm just accepting myself at this point. I've really tried to work through a lot of potential trauma and things that I've gone through and things, and I don't necessarily feel unhealthy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a good spot to be. I also was going to say how this detachment, how close do you think it is to like the concept of suspension of disbelief?
Well, I think that's probably what they're getting at.
Okay.
It's not like dissociating,
right,
or like completely like you are not even in this chair, you were in the movie. Like, I don't think that that's necessarily what they're talking about.
Right.
It's just like, you're watching it and you're all excited about it, but at the end, you do know that, everyone lived, so that it's not, it's not real,
unless
even though you're
the crow.
experiencing it real. Yeah. And then the third thing, it involves our confidence in controlling and managing the dangers we encounter. We can still derive pleasure from the encounter if we feel confident about overcoming the danger.
Okay. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, the roller coaster theory again.
Yeah.
Like, we can face this.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I like going to like the Haunt or Universal Horror Nights or whatever.
Oh my God. I can't do it.
No?
Honestly, it's an anxiety thing.
Yeah.
I don't like jump scares in general because I'm a very jumpy, nervous person in that sense. But like, I'm not scared of the blood. I think all of that stuff looks totally cool and I want to check it out. My biggest fear, somebody making direct eye contact with me, close to me, not saying anything and not knowing what to do in that social situation. And that's what I feel like is what the people in the maze will do to me.
Oh.
And that seems horrifying.
Okay.
I'm not like getting on here saying like I'd be so brave about the other stuff. I suspend my disbelief. I get scared, but this is like the anxiety fear, not the not the horror fear, which is cool. And maybe there's something there, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, it's not for everybody. Like, I really enjoy it. And this last year, so in 2023, I got a horror pass, so we were able to go multiple times.
For Hollywood Horror Nights?
Horror Nights, yeah. HHN.
That's the Universal Studios,
yes.
right?
To me, there's more production involved. I mean, they're all well done, but like this one, I mean, I don't know.
But not Scary Farm had Elvira. True.
That is a true statement.
Which is actually Spanish for
they have
the
a lot
Vira.
more to do. True. That's also true.
No, it's not.
I don't know. Elvira. That was my ex's grandma's name.
Ooh.
I like that name. Anyway, it was just me and my friend, and I would always make him like go first because he's like brave. I get jump scares, just like I know that these people are actors and they cannot touch you because we live in the U.S. and they're not allowed to do that. Like all of that stuff. But like at one point.
Oh, I thought because they were ghosts.
Yeah.
They can't touch you.
They can't touch me. But he was like, can you try and go first? And I was like, ugh. And then I was like, you know what? Yes, I can try that. So I tried it on the Stranger Things maze first. Because like Stranger Things is not a thing that scares me. The jump scares get me, but like that is not a scary. I love the series. I just am not scared of it. So I was like, let me try it. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. So I did it for all the other ones too that night. And I was like, oh, I can do this. Like that was like leveling up for me.
Yeah. No, I think
instead of that's the only time where I will grab someone. Like my friend is also very not like, do not touch, but like in that scenario, he's not gonna be like, ugh, get off me. Like, cause I would just like grab his shirt just like a little bit.
Huddled right next to each other. Like, oh.
Yeah. No.
Like Shaggy and Scooby going through the mazes.
No, because then who's first? I want someone else to get scared first that I know.
See, do they ever have you ever noticed them specifically seeking out the person in the back? Because I want to say I've seen that in videos and stuff a few times.
I know that sometimes they do make eye contact if they're standing there and they're gonna. So like sometimes you can see that coming. I think they just look for who they think they can scare the most.
Right.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. I I mean, my friend that I go with, like, his RBF is real, and he might intimidate a little bit.
I don't know
Mine
what
could be too,
RBF
though.
is.
Resting bitch face.
Yes,
which
yes,
is
yes.
probably not a great way to say it. But,
Yeah,
like,
it's
you know,
fine.
you look in the look on your face when it's resting
Mm-hmm.
is like daggers sometimes.
Mhm.
Like, mine can do that. His does too. So I think I'm the less intimidating of the two. If you have to pick one in that way. He would agree with this. I don't feel bad about saying any of this.
Good.
You know who you are. Okay, so like that's why people can enjoy that. That's what this thing is. But the first thing I was gonna start with was, you know, the general demographic. Like, what are the traits?
Mm-hmm.
So
Of
people that enjoy horror.
Okay.
Because it's not everybody.
No.
So the main one are people who seek sensations, like you were saying earlier. So that is definitely an ADHD thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's at least partially an ASD thing. It depends on where you fall with that. But they say that numerous studies have demonstrated that those high in this trait tend to enjoy horror. Sensation seeking is the tendency to look for novel, risky, or intense experiences. People high in this trait tend to experience positive emotions when they have an intensely stimulating experience, even if those experiences are negative. I fall in that category big time.
I get that. That for sure.
This says that high sensation seekers are wired to enjoy stimulating experience of horror films in a way people low in this trait are not. Which the converse of that is empathy. According to this article.
Okay.
Research indicates that people lower in the trait of empathy tend to enjoy horror movies and are less impacted by the suffering. Not everyone agrees with this, however. This is not a study. I mean, some research, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would, very anecdotally, I would disagree with that. Or that seems strange to me from my anecdotal evidence. But I don't know how deeply they researched it or anything like that.
It seems like it could go either way depending on whoever the researcher was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I could see that, but I also think I have a lot of empathy.
Yeah.
I also am fine watching fake gore all day.
Yeah. Well, and also, but like to your point, and I guess also like there's a huge difference between when Jason Voorhees zips somebody up in their sleeping bag and slams them against the tree. That's just good American fun, had by all. Versus, you know, if you're talking about
Saw,
but like films that are, or even like Misery is a horror movie, but like, but you're meant to have different reactions to those two different things.
Yeah, because
objectively what's happening to the person in the Jason Voorhees movie is worse, but that's kind of the fun anarchism that has come along with that particular brand of American slasher. That I think the Jason movies really, really, especially in their mid game, kind of did so well. I think when Jason got bad, he at least became kind of awesome. Or when he got corny, he at least became kind of awesome and did these really fun things.
Went to outer space.
I love.
Went to New York.
Jason X, not as much, but like when Freddy Krueger got corny, he just kind of got corny and bad stand-up comedian. For me, I know people that love the corny Freddy stuff, and good for you.
That was not my series.
Yeah, but yeah. So I think even then, when you're talking, you can't just generalize out how much empathy you're supposed to have in a horror movie. I think that depends on the horror movie you're watching.
I think people are socialized to empathize more in that respect with like animals dying in films versus people. There's a lot of, there's tons of like war films, things like that, where people are dying left and right. That people who maybe would say that they don't like horror films, but could tolerate it there.
Right.
So I don't know. It's definitely not something you can, well, if you have low empathy, you will like horror films and they won't bother you.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean, that's just something people say. And then another thing, anatomical sex or not gender, is a predictive factor.
Oh, okay.
Male typically or more often.
Yeah, but I would think that part of that is
Socialization.
I would say a large part of that's probably
'Cause, like,
socialization.
there's another. So I just wrote next to this problematic. So, okay.
Did you highlight it too? Please tell me you highlighted it.
I highlighted it and then I wrote.
No, the word problematic.
No, it's written in highlighter.
Oh,
I could not
nice.
highlight it. Okay, so this article says sex is the most predictive of enjoyment of horror films, with males tending to enjoy scary and violent movies far more than females. This difference can at least partially be explained by the fact that females tend to experience greater fear and anxiety than males. I'm like, fuck off.
Yeah.
And then,
no.
in addition, females tend to be higher than males in the trait of disgust sensitivity. This could lead them to dislike horror movies that depict blood and gore. Again, this is socialization shit. This has nothing to do with actual sex at birth, gender, whatever. Like,
Yeah, none of this is biological.
no.
This is
Get outta
all learned. All
Yeah.
learned. This is all pressed on by society. And also, I would reckon that those numbers are changing.
Yeah, this doesn't even have numbers.
Yeah. But like, even like, I would, that if males do still fall as part of that bucket, or the bigger part of that bucket, I think it's evening out at a probably pretty rapid basis.
I would hope
and it's
so.
a great thing. You know, it is awesome to see more and more women directors getting involved in the scene. It is great to see women fans, even like creators on TikTok and things like that, to go to the conventions and see more women. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, this is all socially shit is all upside down and backwards and fucked up.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say about it. Like,
Yeah.
gender, as far as like expression and what it's supposed to be, it's all made up. As far as like, okay, well, you're a girl, so you have to like pink, and you're a boy, you have to like blue, and it's okay if you like violent stuff and if you're kind of noisy, but like girls cannot be that way. Like, that's based on sex organs. Like, what the, that makes that makes no sense.
Yeah. Well, and too, like, one of the things, I don't know, I kind of, part of it to me screams insecurity, in that I don't use this as a bragging point. And I'll talk more about like the horror community in general later on down the line. But I think it's actually a really, really good community. It's one of the better fandoms and communities I've at some level been a part of, or at least observed. And there it goes. It's all gone. That thought just went that way somewhere. Oh, I was going to say there's definitely a toxic element. I think it's smaller, like way smaller than Star Wars. But there's definitely like a toxic element of people who are like, oh, you have to watch this. Oh, are you even a horror fan if you don't watch this? And it's like,
that attitude transcends all genres of whatever. And like, you're know-it-all. You don't know everything. Get out of here.
And that, but two is also very like, those are going to be the most extreme films. And
yeah, I'm not going to watch, what is it called when it's real?
Oh, like snuff films? Yeah.
But snuff is porn. There's, or is it not? I don't know.
No, snuff are widely regarded as, or at least we've not had any evidence of real life snuff films. But what a snuff film would be I'm an eccentric millionaire and I pay you, $100,000. Go kill somebody and record it and bring me back that videotape.
I mean, I don't want to sidebar too far, but I did listen to an episode of Sword and Scale where
I don't know what that is.
It's a podcast about true crime, but it's for me, it is much more literally disturbing than others. You know, like if you watch Snapped or you watch, you know, I don't know, Dateline, you learn a lot about the stories and stuff, whatever, from the survivor's point of view. You know, that's kind of the typical way that goes.
Right.
This uses all footage, so audio, I would assume, or audio pulled from video. So it's like of the crimes happening or like, you know, stuff like that. It just makes it much more real. That's why it's so disturbing. I can handle even real life murder a lot and, you know, be pretty.
You've murdered like 6 people since I've known you.
Yeah. I called out the Dexters. It's me.
Just that was when we had our little break. You noticed the dog stopped barking.
And then its ghost started barking after that. But one of the episodes, very disturbing. I mean, I guess how can you confirm that this is real? But basically, it was a video put on YouTube and pulled, and if you were found to have like watched this, like you got arrested or something. But it was not in the U.S. But it was like women getting paid to like. It was so disturbing. But anyway, it was real for all intents and purposes, like in that setting. So like. Anyway, just like, but thinking about it, and this is not how I would think if it was a fake movie. I would be like, that's gross. I won't watch that movie, but it's not real.
Yeah. Well, and I'll bring up, or just to continue with what I was saying before of, I do happen to love all those excessively gory, extreme films. So like I think I've hit most of them that people could bring up, like the typical ones they'll bring up. I know Irreversible Serbian film, Cannibal Holocaust, and I've seen all of them, and I have Human Centipede 2.
I mean, I won't watch it again.
Yeah, but like I've seen all that, and I have different opinions. Sallow. I have different opinions on different ones and which ones I like more and some of them I don't like, and you know, different reasons and stuff like that. But the Faces of Death series, which started off
I've heard about those.
Yeah, well, the first Faces of Death came out in like the late 70s, and it was mostly fake, with some news archival stuff. But as it went on, it is just collections of terrible incidents, and all the fake stuff just kind of dropped out after a while. It was just like news incidents and video collections of people having died real death. I don't like that. And I'm not, if that is your thing and that scratches some weird itch within you, that's great. I'm not here to yuck your yum. But like,
and it doesn't have to necessarily be like you derive pleasure as in like you enjoy it, but there's something about it that you want to look at it.
Yeah. And well, like one of the reasons I bring that up is I do kind of, and by the way, I know people that watch that stuff that wouldn't watch a Serbian film, which is the name of the movie, not just any film from Serbia.
Whoa, that sounds problematic also.
Fucking Serbians. But like, I guess, and that's something over on my show I try to bring up a lot, or my other show. This is my show too. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with drawing your lines when it comes to these things. And those lines can be, they can just be around certain material that just bothers you. I know a lot of people that will watch really crazy stuff, but they don't like seeing anything happen to animals, even if it's fake. They won't watch a film if it does that.
I don't want to watch that either.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch a horse dying. It's a horses. I don't want to watch anything die, but horses are especially egregious to me.
I was going to say, why horse?
I don't know. I mean, the easy answer is I watched Neverending Story on repeat when I was 5.
That's another one.
But like Artax dies, right? Like, but not even in like a way that's gross. But like
he comes back.
But he died.
You stupid horse.
But I think horses are, at least when I was a kid, and my mom always had not like a special interest in horses, but like, you know, I've always felt connected to horses.
Okay.
I've never had one. I've only ridden like ponies when I was a kid. I really enjoy horseback riding if I can. I'm not an equestrian. I don't know how to do those things. This is like once every 5 years I get to do this.
Right,
but
right.
it does feel like a different type of connection. I would not want to watch a cat dying, obviously. I won't want to watch any animal. I could watch a human blow up, but you do that to an animal, I don't like it. I get it.
Yeah. Artistically, I don't mind it. And that's me personally. When they really kill animals, I have a problem with that. I don't like that. But locally, that's few and far between.
Yeah.
But
yeah. All right. Well, we kind of.
No, let's keep talking about dead animals. I think that'll really get them going. Real quick question.
Lost all listeners.
Or gain some new ones. Last Unicorn. Were you a Last Unicorn fan?
I've never heard of it.
Oh, never mind.
I in the know-it-all version of a horror fan, I am not a horror fan. I love horror.
Last Unicorn was a kid's cartoon, like a movie that was a cartoon, came out in like the late 80s. And just because you said you liked horses, and it was around that, it was like a fantasy loosely in the vein of Neverending Story.
Oh.
So
no, I never watched that. My brother played with My Little Ponies. I did not. I just felt they felt more human isn't the right word, but I don't know. I just felt like you
could connect with them more.
Yeah. Whatever that is. So not that that's a line. I don't want to watch anything die, but like, okay, like in Game of Thrones, you know, horses get knocked down in battle and stuff, or like, you know, someone will shoot a horse.
Yeah.
And I hate it. I could watch all the people die. I don't care.
What about something like Blazing Saddles? Are you?
I didn't watch it.
Oh, never mind. There's a point. It's played for laughs, but there's a point where there's a character named
Blazin?
Yeah.
Blazin' Saddle.
Blazin'. It's someone stole his saddle. Mongo. And Mongo was just like this really big dude. And so at first, it was like, oh, you don't want to mess with Mongo. And like the first time the sheriff was going to go get him, he put his guns on and he's like, oh, you don't want to do that. Shooting him will only make him madder. But at one point, like he does punch a horse, which is obviously a fake, a stunt that the horse did. But I was curious, had you seen that, or how you would feel about it in a comedic sense?
I probably wouldn't like it.
Yeah, no, that's a totally reasonable answer.
Yeah, I can't say definitively, but it doesn't sound like something I would try and watch. So thanks. I will never watch Blazing Saddles.
That's my legacy: getting less people to watch one of the greatest comedies of all time.
Doing a solid for the movie industry.
I'm sure Blazing Saddles will have its other fans.
Right. Oopsies. Where's my notes here?
For the record, while she's finding her notes, love Blazing Saddles.
Okay. I bet you do.
I do.
In addition to... there's the fucking dogs. I did not murder it. Callback.
I just maimed it. It's fine.
You just heard. I would not have been able to do any of it. Okay, so other reasons people like horror films in general, not just like how you could derive pleasure from it necessarily, but okay. So it gives the opportunity for vicarious experience and threat mastery, which I thought was kind of a cool way to talk about it. So, oh my God, what is wrong with the dogs?
They're dogs. They're doing what dogs are supposed to do.
Inside.
They're
supposed to do that too.
They're bad creatures.
Do they not know what's going on in here? I know the world does not revolve around me, but this is one I wish it did.
I'm just saying, cats are better.
Agree. Mine are not quieter. I mean, they're not that loud, but
I was gonna say when a cat does do that, like loud meow, that's concerning. Like it's in a fight. Oh, that gets me to my core. I'm like, oh, there's a cat out there suffering, and I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Especially because they fight with the skunk by my house. I have like a skunk that hangs out. Oh. You ever heard a skunk yell before?
No.
Here's how a skunk yelling goes. say you're sitting in your garage and you hear this, and you're like, what the hell is that? Oh, it's a skunk. That's a skunk.
Skunks, spraying is not their first line of defense.
But when you hear them yelling, then you get concerned because they're no longer they're past their first line of defense. Yeah, I had, I smoke out in my garage a cigar every one, which is a task that takes me about an hour, and
it's a task.
But like it's sit there with the garage door open, and I actually live like my backyard. We get skunks, and so most of the time they just walk right by. And I used to get freaked out a little at first, but now I just let them walk right by. There's a mama and a baby, and they're cute. But like when you hear it yell and you see its tail raised, then it's like I'm not gonna. I'm not brave anymore. Ah.
Yeah. When I used to open at Pete's, so this would have been about 4:15 a.m.
Okay. I thought you were going to give me it's been like 10 years ago.
What year is it? Maybe like 14 years ago.
Okay.
This probably happened because it was this was the last stages of my coffee life, but, anyway, so this was not that it matters, but in Newport, Corona Del Mar, technically, but that's not a full city, if you want to get technical. So two weird things happened.
Imagine your brother's boyfriend, husband over in Japan. Like, I don't care.
Yeah. So I got there, I arrived, and I'm walking up to open.
I'm sorry. I meant to not. Yeah, I meant to not have the big face reaction, and then it was enough to shut off your story. I guess I never noticed. Is your brother's husband Japanese? Okay, so they met in Japan. They didn't get married here and then move to Japan.
Yeah, no. I mean, they did get married here, but no.
But yeah. Okay.
No. Yeah, he's a national citizen, whatever. Yeah.
I'm not sure what that arm movement was for.
I don't. Over there. They're over there in Japan. I don't know. You fly this way. I have no idea where I am in space or geography. I'm not great at it. Okay, so I got out of my car. I was walking up, and I saw someone by the door, which is not normal because it's 4:15 in the morning. We did serve I don't know if they were actually stockbrokers, but their jobs had to do with the stock market. Right. And this person was involved in that, but he wasn't a super regular. But I was walking up and he was looking at me and he was said something and I was like, what? I'm like, why are you here? It's really too early. You can't come in with me. What are you doing? And he was like, there's a skunk. And I was like, what? And this skunk with its tail raised, but it wasn't acting. It might have been rabid. I didn't see things, but I don't know what skunks behave like, but its behavior was erratic.
Okay.
And there's a fountain in front of the store, so I just jumped up on the fountain ledge, which was a foot up, and just skipped over this thing and got in the store as fast as I could. But that was my closest encounter with the skunk. But it didn't spray anything. I just was like, well, what do I do now? This guy's outside. He could go to his car. It's weird that he's trying to get in. Because he wasn't creepy either. So I was I just didn't know why he was there at 4:15 in the morning.
Yeah.
Maybe
it was his skunk. It had gotten out.
Maybe. I don't know. He wasn't one of the regulars, as I said. So I was I knew who this person was, but we're not open. And it's illegal, according to the Pete's rules, for you to just come in and wait. There's safety things. Anyway, that was a long skunk tangent. Okay. All right. So vicarious experiences and threat mastery. So a tendency to love horror can be traced back to the ancient people, right? Where hypervigilance was necessary and it was required to avoid becoming the prey to a larger animal.
Yeah.
So that's not active in us. We don't come as far as most people are not experiencing things of serious threat all day, every day. That need for constant vigilance isn't really there. But it's an unconscious threat detection system. So like horror films can help activate that. And let's see, what else do they say about this? Okay, because horror films do such a great job of stimulating threatening situations, this means our emotional responses to them are similar to those we'd experience if we encountered a real life threat. And so this lets us put on our innate threat detection, or not put on, it lets us put that detection system to use. And it allows us to experience things, you know, and kind of like, what would I do in this situation? You know,
Right.
feel like you can conquer it. We kind of already talked about that stuff. Which
is, if there's anything people with ADHD love doing, it's pre-planning. And so if you can see the pre-plan the million ways that you could die, there's that.
Or like how you could board up your house, or like, you know,
Right.
I lived in a place that I was like, you know, if the zombie thing happened, this would be a pretty secure place. Like I could make this really helpful for myself.
Nice.
Yeah. So also horror movies are a risk-free way to vicariously experience threats and rehearse one's responses to those threats. Plus, after people get through a horror movie unscathed, they may feel a sense of accomplishment and mastery over the threat that they've experienced, which leads them to feel more confident in their ability to handle that and other anxiety-provoking situations.
Yeah, I think so. I'll add this. I hope I'm not stepping on any later notes. But one of the things I know for me personally, another reason that I hate when people like watch a whole movie and say like, oh, it's not scary. It's not even scary. It's not even scary. Scary is not like a prerequisite of horror for me. Like there are films that I would consider horror films like The Crow. I don't think The Crow is particularly scary at any point, but it just takes place in this kind of dark, macabre world. I think that probably my favorite movie of all time is one called The Cemetery Man, or Della Morte dell'Amore. And I don't think there's anything really scary in it at all. It's just kind of this weird, like, look at life and death using zombies and love. And so there's lots, and I mean, I'm not going to be so as to say that there isn't some expectation of scaring in horror, and that we aren't going to see like a lot of films with the object purpose of trying to scare people. But I don't think that's 100% it. I think a lot of horror is just kind of is weird and off and macabre and strange, and I think that represented in the community and in the movies themselves, it kind of leads to a space where if you can, if you can get into the blood and the gore, it is a place where I think, I mean, most people get into it usually when they're a bit younger, so I'll use the term kids, but like that weird kids can go. And like we've mentioned before, being neurodiverse, you know, you have two, you're really good at masking, and so you have a lot of internal stuff that you're working out about that, or you're not as great at masking and you're considered one of the weird kids. And I'm not saying that you necessarily have to go to horror, but I do think that kind of becomes one of the safe spaces. I do find that the horror community has tended to be one of the kinder communities that I've been in, both like online stuff and in-person stuff. You know, I've had friends along the lines that have done not great stuff, but I have to say, like, most like my horror junkie friends were kind of like these goofy, fun people that wanted to share something, which I think is a big component of a lot of neurodiversity. Is like, oh, I have this thing I want to share. And so I think, and I think a lot of us are just kind of bucking the stereotype of being, not that these people don't exist, but being like moody teenagers who hate everything and that are just like, oh, darkness, blah, blah, blah. Most like really gritty horror fans I know are like, oh, dude, you know? So I guess I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. Again, no evidence behind it or anything like that.
This article calls that exploring the dark side of humanity.
Well, seems like a mean way to put the nice thing I just said.
I guess. I don't know. Well, that's why I said this article, not me.
No.
Some studies theorize that enjoyment of horror movies comes from morbid curiosity about subjects like death and terror, also referred to as the dark side of humanity. One study found that people with higher levels of morbid curiosity are more likely to watch horror films.
I mean, that makes sense.
And less likely to be scared after watching them, and generally watch these flicks alone. And then in this theory, horror movies let us vicariously explore the nature of evil, both in others and in ourselves. They also allow us to grapple with the darkest parts of humanity in a safe environment. It's maybe a little bit connected to what you were saying.
Yeah. I don't know. I always kind of feel like I'm not saying that stuff doesn't exist. I'm not saying it's not there. I'm not even saying that maybe it's not the majority. But I think they always kind of look past the flip side of that same coin. Like I've heard it said, I can't remember off the top of my head by who. But like when kids dress up for Halloween, they're not celebrating death. They're celebrating life.
Or they're trying to get candy.
Yeah, or they're trying to get candy. Well, I mean, when kids dress up as skeletons or ghouls or whatever. I don't say the word ghouls enough.
I don't ever say it.
Mm-hmm. You should try it. It just brought me so much joy.
I want to.
You'll get there. It's okay.
Ew, that is gaslighting bullshit.
One day you will fall in love.
Don't gaslight me about ghouls.
And you will say ghouls all the time. And you will start a band called Pussy Belly.
And then I'll exit life. I'll unalive me. That is death to me.
But yeah,
all the things I hate in one sentence. Thank you.
But for like the morbid curiosity thing, like sometimes you can paint that as morbid curiosity, but like I do feel like sometimes it feels like a celebration of being alive to watch death. Maybe. And not in like a na way your grandpa died or people have died before.
My grandpa did die.
My grandpa died too.
Time ago.
We're both 40. It's bound to happen.
Yeah.
So I don't think in a way that like, you know, is bratty about being alive. But I do think there is a certain celebration of life when we watch particularly macabre versions of death appear. And I don't think that people looking into it give it that credit from time to time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, other than just like socializing groups of people to like and dislike things, I mean, I never thought that hard about it for my own self. I just knew, like, this is one of the ways that I rebelled when I was a tween, maybe 13, 14. I'm from the Bay Area in Northern California, and I grew up in a town called Benicia, which the Zodiac killer had first victims attributed on Lake Herman Road, which is, I drove that all the time. You know, it's kind of remote, but I mean, all the time might be a stretch, but you know.
Yeah, well.
More than you.
But I grew up in Reno Valley, so I had 3 meth houses on my street.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah.
Jealous. Lucky you didn't blow up.
I know. Which is great because when one got shut down, I didn't have to go very far to get my new meth.
Great. Meth is scary.
Meth is scary.
Yeah, like, so I got really into the idea of the Zodiac Killer, which now I don't even care about. I'm
Which
not
is
even
probably why
convinced
he
it's one
stopped.
person. Well, I think that person is dead now. But I don't know. But like, you know, to me, it wasn't even about like morbid, like, oh, who'd he kill? Like, my dad is like this too, though. Like, morbid might be the weird word because that feels judgy, you know? I don't feel morbid because I'm very curious about death and how it happens and how people are killed. I love watching and listening to true crime shows and things. It's fascinating and interesting, and I feel like I do learn stuff. But also, I mean, I don't know, it can also be relaxing, which people don't understand. Again, morbid, not the right word, but you know, it did freak my parents out.
You know what?
It did the trick.
I'm going to back you on this. And I think you just kind of put together in my head when you were talking about it of, you know, like the kind of judgment behind the word morbid. Culturally, one of the physical things about existence, we might not all know exactly what happens after, but we sure shit know we're going to die. Death exists.
I think it's weirder if someone is completely unbothered or has never thought about it and does not care about that.
Yeah, I would say that is an unhealthy view on death.
Yeah.
Also, that person probably isn't alive. But like, I don't know. In culturally though, we've seen it through all cultures, through all times, in stories, in art, so to come up to somebody in the, you know, year of 2024 and say, isn't that kind of morbid? I'm like, well, then it's a morbidity that has been like so deep inside us that I agree with you. You may be able to call it morbid. I don't know, but that's certainly not unnatural. There's nothing unnatural about it. There's nothing weird about that.
Like, there are plenty of like podcasts that are basically, I don't want to be, my point here is not to be rude to these people, but I don't know how to describe it. But basically just, you know, like, I got my wine and I got my murder podcast. Yay. You know, like that, you know, like people who are in all other visible tells normal, whatever that is, also very fascinating. True crime is a very popular genre.
It is. Which
crosses paths with horror in this aspect of violence. You don't see it all on the TV because you can't show dead bodies that are real in the face, you know, or whatever. But like, it's not kittens. Yeah. It's not beautiful. It's, you know, but there is something to like, I cannot not look at this or listen to this, or like it's a fascinating story. Like, what made this person do that? You know, I don't think that that's morbid. I think, you know, trying to understand why people might kill you or people, you know, even if you're not thinking about it that way, you know, maybe your brain is trying to figure that puzzle out. Like, do I have these people in my life? Do I, you know, what do I need to look for? You know, like all those things kind of like run through my brain all at the same time with a million other things as I'm absorbing that content.
Yeah. I mean, we live in a world where these things happen. And of course we don't want to ever overemphasize these things happening. Like, you don't want to believe that at any point there's a decent probability that you could be murdered, because that's not true. Violent crime has been on a giant dive for decades.
Not according to the news, but we don't talk about that.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was going to say. This isn't specifically to horror movies, but it is to kind of the stuff that I love. And horror movies definitely was one of the big doors that opened me into that. But a thing I've said before of like, I don't see why it's so fucking weird that, or everybody thinks it's fucking weird that I like horror movies and these super gory movies. But like, your fucking regular ass dad is just collecting Nazi memorabilia because he's fascinated with World War II.
That's an excuse.
Yeah, or like that people knows, like, I don't understand why knowing so much about the Civil War is considered a good thing.
Or a harmless nerd thing.
Yeah, like a harmless nerd thing. But then my actual harmless nerd thing is that's weird.
Mm-hmm.
That gets you to go to the school psychologist because you wrote a paper on the movies you liked when you were a senior in high school.
Columbine didn't help you in that scenario.
No, Columbine did not. I did that.
You told it twice.
I did. Wait, the Columbine or I had to go see the psychologist because of the paper?
The therapist saying the thing about Columbine.
Yeah. No, I wrote. I had to do like a senior project in high school, and part of it was I did it on cult movies, and so like I wrote. I don't even remember what the thesis was, but I wrote a paper about cult movies or what makes a cult movie a cult movie, and gotten into the different kinds and talked about specific cult movies. And apparently, my teacher, who was an amazing teacher, she was like, they were going to send you to the school psychiatrist. I had to stop them. No, he's a normal boy. He just likes weird movies. Which, by the way, I don't know why she had to be the voice of reason there. Like, I would figure that it would just be that would be the thing you would jump to of like, this person likes weird movies, not, oh, this person's a danger.
Well, I mean, back then in the early thousands, it is not like it is now for a lot of things. Services like that, I don't know. That is kind of strange, but I mean, I don't know. I wasn't there, so it's hard to say.
I mean, it's, it was, I think some of the worst words, and this is maybe getting a little off topic, but the see something, say something.
Well, how would someone else even know about that? Because she's the one that was reading it.
Because it was my senior project, and so it didn't get graded by your in my school. It didn't get graded by your teacher because this was like worth like 40% of your grade. So it got graded by like a panel of teachers.
Oh, yeah, I mean, whatever. I don't want to judge people's sensitivity to things, but I'm sure that had something to do with it. Because Columbine happened when we were in 9th grade.
Yeah, 99.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we need to cut it off. Okay. We will continue next time. There are some more things to talk about with this other than just enjoying talking about horror films and philosophizing it. But
Philosophawaffle.
Yeah, awful waffle. Did you watch Salute Your Shorts?
I sure did.
Okay.
Know what an awful waffle
Donkey
is.
lips. Okay.
That was mean. I agreed with you. No, I'm kidding.
That's his name if you don't know. Zeke the Plumber was a scary...
Zeke the Plumber is still one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen in my fucking life. Like, have you ever... I've gone back and watched it on YouTube and it's still terrifying.
Someone was at some... The meme was, if you know, you know, and it circled like the Zeke the Plumber statue or whatever it was. And I just sent it to one of my friends. Because like, if you know, you know.
Yeah.
Zeke the Plumber.
And he just did like weird, corny stuff.
With the plumber.
With
the plunger.
Yeah, but that mask with the bandage over the nose was so creepy.
It is. Go watch that. If you're dabbling with horror, I mean, it might be a good palate cleanser or amuse-bouche.
Amuse-bouche. I like that word.
It is hard to say. I don't love French. If you liked any of the things that we've said or wanted to participate in any of it, that would be great. Could you rate, subscribe wherever you are? A 5-star review would be awesome. If you could maybe write some stuff in a review, that would be kind of fun to read. Find us on Patreon. That would be super cool. If you want to find us on socials, we are on TikTok and Instagram at Inner Moxie Pod. You could email us your thoughts, your thesis on horror films, whatever. I'll read it.
100%.
I will.
Yeah, I will too. We'll talk about it on this show.
We will. myinnermoxiepod@gmail.com. If you want to find me on socials, which I've been very inactive lately, but you could try. I mean, you can. It's public. You can do this. It's at Zanism, Zannism. On Instagram, I am a religion and a disease. Always.
Well said.
Thank you.
You can listen to my other podcast where we do talk about horror movies from time to time. The Banned Media Podcast. A horror movie or two has been banned along the way. You can also catch me on all the socials, but I'm most active over on TikTok at Banned Ronnie.
And with that, we close this door. Another will open next week. Stay fresh, cheese bags. Bye.
Later.